Welcome back to Rochester Voices. I'm Mayor Kim Norton, and I have with me today a really fun panel. There's a group in Rochester called the Tri-Government Leaders, and so today I'm going to introduce you to your community leaders. With us is Randy Schubring, who's president of the City Council. We have Cathy Nathan, who is president of the Rochester School Board, and Mark Thein, who is the chair of the Olmsted County Board of Commissions. So we're really excited to share with you a little bit about tri-government. And I thought maybe one way to kick it off would be to share a little bit about looking back over the year, what's one accomplishment you're really proud of on your board or commission as in your role. So maybe we could just start here and go down the line.
Great. Well, it's great to be here, Mayor. And from my perspective, so for me, I started my service as City Council President, as you know, this year. And one of the mantras that I've had all year is that I really want to see our council really work on respect and trust among the 8 of us on the City Council and you, Mayor. And I think we're doing a really good job on that and working on really looking at policy and looking at the issues for the city of Rochester. And I also really enjoy the connection. When it comes to working on trust and respect, it's also those informal gatherings, and for me, it's really been beneficial to have coffee early in the morning with Mark and Cathy and yourself. So I feel like we're building connections across the tri-government as well.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that, and I'm sure everyone at the table would agree that in January of election years, you get a different group potentially to the table. And to President Schubring's comments, it's really important to build those bonds and relationships and trust so that you can work most efficiently. So maybe, Cathy, is there anything you're really proud of on the school board this past year?
Well, I think building on the theme of trust, I think we need to have our community trust in us that we are leading our students to achieve academically and to be safe and welcome in their schools. And you know, our recent MCA scores came out, and we had some schools that really showed some significant increases in our students' math and reading scores. And for us, when we look deeper at those schools, those are the ones that are really robustly implementing the components of the strategic plan we've been working on for the past 3 years. A big component of that is our school continuous improvement plans, where we're really driving the success of individual schools, looking at the data of their students, seeing what they need, and then assigning the resources and the people to meet those students' needs. And of course, over the past year, we've really implemented our new literacy approach. A whole new curriculum for reading. Our K-3 teachers have mostly completed the science of reading training, and our 4-5 and secondary teachers are tackling that this year. And we've really looking at resources K-12 for all students who may not yet be reading at grade level, and why that is, and where we can implement those so that they can also be successful. So for us, we're in year 3 of a strategic plan. And in the 25 years I've been associated with the district, either having kids in it or being an advocate or being on the board, this is the first time we've gone through a 3-year cycle of a strategic plan, and now we're on the cusp of planning our next strategic plan. So I think that's a big accomplishment for the district, and the fact that everybody is still on board and motivated to continue its success, I think is a really big accomplishment.
It is, and it's good for the city. So Commissioner Thein, could you share a little bit about what you think one of your main goals that you're proud of this past year was?
Sure. I think I'm most proud of breaking ground on the exhibition center at Grant Park. After studying it and planning it for 6 to 8 years, we finally broke ground, and it's going to be an 80,000 square foot building that'll be multi-purpose, and it kind of fills a niche in our community that's not being filled right now. It's a large open air space with a cement floor that'll have sand on it for approximately 6 months a year, so we can do agricultural events those 6 months, and then just cement floor the rest of the year for other events, exhibitions, stuff like that. It replaces a bunch of end-of-life buildings. We literally had one of the buildings fall down like 3 years ago. We're having to replace our grandstand with a more multi-purpose cement slab with berms around it that have portable stands around it, so we're doing a lot of work at Grand Park for the community.
It's been a labor of love for the board, so
Yeah,
it's been
well,
interesting.
It's been a
to watch
labor
that.
for sure.
Not always love. Well, you know, we all represent 3 different organizations, but we all represent, for the most part, the same representatives. You may have a little bit more, Commissioner, the school district may branch out, but it's all, everyone that lives in Rochester benefits from the work all of us do. So I thought maybe you could share a thought or idea, and you can just, whoever wants to address this can, about how you partnered with another member here to do something this past year, or historically.
I'll start. Probably our trail side complex, where we're building a 36-unit complex in southwest Rochester off of Maywood Road for seniors to move into, and we worked well with the city to be able to separate the property, do zoning, hook up to utilities, and that's going to, a lot of those units are going to be income controlled to help our seniors that are on low income to be able to move out of their homes that maybe they're having a hard time keeping up with and move into a new apartment and be able to age in place that way.
That's great. Anyone else?
I would say one of the new partnerships that the city and the county are working on is our Any Path Home program,
I'm glad you mentioned that.
which is designed to really help our unhoused population here in Rochester and surrounding areas. And we're also looking to get support from the school district as well on that. And it's a partnership, the city, the county, and the social service providers in the area, the Landing, Salvation Army, and others, to really look systemically at the issue of homelessness and identify the individuals and what services they need on an individual basis and get them into the system and help, and ultimately a home here in Rochester.
Very important initiative.
And that is so important for our students and our families, because we identify over 500 students every year who are experiencing housing instability. And one of our partnerships that we have with the county are housing opportunities to promote education, where we're working with Olmsted County staff and a few nonprofits. We were able to keep 90 families from being evicted this past year. And it's all about connecting them to resources, identifying their immediate needs, identifying their long-term needs, and that collaboration, you know, with having so many students who are facing that during the year, the city and the county working on the long-term solutions, but then having the staff being able to work on the immediate needs. I think together we may be able to see some progress in that area.
I appreciate that. And I was just going to mention to the community at large who may not know, the 4 of us meet monthly. There's also some other opportunities for our administration and other members of the boards or councils to get together periodically. But we meet so that we understand what's happening in the other person's realm and where we can share and help each other. And I have found that very beneficial. Some of the topics that were just mentioned are some of the topics we talk about, because we know the unhoused and the homeless population affects all of our entities, because there are residents that we care about. And so when we can share, that helps. I think it's built good relationships between the 4 of us, but it also helps us in our goals. And so kind of talking in that same realm, one of the things that we do is hear from our community. I, for instance, felt a year ago that we needed to hear from our community, and I did the Rochester Visioning exercise. There are other ways we hear from our communities, and I'm wondering if you can share a little bit about how do you hear what the community wants and needs, and then how does that help you set direction or policy as an elected official? Whoever wants to go first.
Well, I think we have been doing that intentionally, especially since developing the strategic plan. We can't develop our priorities without knowing what the priorities of our community are. But this year, we did some intentional outreach on our mission and our vision and our brand, which we'll finalize before the end of this year. And that is also going to drive the themes of our strategic plan, our tentative RPS 2030 plan. And we are going to be engaging this fall and winter in extensive surveying, focus groups, including focus groups to specific cultural communities and their language, And then we'll have work groups with members of the community who will actually help to develop the priorities and then develop the strategies related to them. So I think we found that by tying it to the big decisions that we're making and including that in the timeline and the work plan, we don't have to wait for them to come to us. They are knowing that they're going to have ongoing opportunities to give us the feedback before we make the decisions.
I would say from the city standpoint, one, with our strategic priorities this year, we elevated inclusive decision-making to be a key focus area. And from my perspective, I really want to see the residents connect with us before meetings, before the evening where we all have public comment periods, but really reaching out earlier. And I reach out and ask through our local media, through communication to the residents, and I get a lot of feedback, and it really helps with that decision making. And I think first and foremost, residents want to be heard. They want to be heard on issues and not be told by our city what is happening, but heard from before the decision's made. And that's something that I look for in all of our priority issues.
I agree wholeheartedly. And Commissioner?
Well, I would say so much of what counties do is in the background that a lot of people don't realize what counties are doing, so they don't reach out to us on a regular basis. I'll get occasional emails, even less occasional phone calls. I try to use social media to try to tell what counties are doing, and then I receive feedback, some of it good, some of it not so good. But one recent event that happened, and we had at a county board meeting, we had 17 people who got up and spoke in front of us about how changes on the federal level were going to affect them with Medicare cuts and stuff like that, and their stories were very touching and very helpful to us to try to connect the issues that are going on in Washington D.C. to our citizens, and it spurred some change on the county board. So I appreciate things like that.
And it sounds like all of us value that community input, and I hope the community feels that. We value community input and want to use it in our decision making and our policy making. And so, always reach out. I personally tell people email is the easiest way and the fastest way to reach us. I think we all probably do our own email, and I think sometimes the community doesn't realize that. They think we have, endless staff that do our emails. We do our own, right? And we read it, but it reaches us quickly, and we can respond to it hopefully quickly.
To that point, Mayor, I will often pick up the phone and people are surprised that I'm answering my own telephone.
Exactly.
And it's like, why?
Right. We don't have a lot of staff behind us.
Yep.
Because this last year I designated as a year about youth, I wondered if any of you, and you don't all have to answer if you don't want, but do any of you have any special ways you listen to youth voices or do activities particularly focused at youth? It's been a kind of a love for me this past year. We've hired a lot of artists in town to work with our young people. We've supported Cradle to Career and in their event to support the providers that work for our children, our teachers, our daycare providers. So I've been really focused on that and just wondered if there's anything that any of you want to mention particular to children and youth.
Well, I love bragging about our student school board, where we have middle and high school students meet monthly. We have a board member, and in addition to our staff from our Youth Empowerment and Family Engagement team, and we have engaged them particularly in some of our key decision making. We had extensive conversations about our cell phone policy and received some great feedback from them and continue to receive great feedback from them on how the implementation is going, and also hearing from them about the positive impact it has had on their learning and their social, improving their just the social environment of the school. Having, at least at the middle school level, it's a way for the day. At the high school level, they get to use it at lunch and at passing time. But I don't know that we would have been as successful in implementing it if we hadn't have talked to that wide-ranging group of students. We're going to engage them again in the strategic planning process. both in terms of evaluating some of what we've done in this strategic plan and, of course, planning for the future. And the fact that we have this established group of young people, they're also learning youth leadership and how decision-making processes are made. And I think we're also empowering future leaders that way by involving them in the process as it goes along.
Thank you.
I would say, and Mayor, thank you for inviting me to the Youth Board Commission that you staff for the city. And I was just excited to speak before that group of 20 students really engaged and interested in the future of either local government, state government, federal government, international issues, and just the energy that young people bring to our work fills me with energy. And I look to also the crew of interns that the city had this summer,
Excellent,
I think
yeah.
20, and just seeing them buzzing around and starting their careers is just very exciting. And then one last point is I'm just so excited that UMR, University of Minnesota Rochester, has reached the 1,000 student threshold, and to see young people in the skyways downtown, it just brings a new vitality and energy to the city. So always want to see those young faces.
I agree. Mark?
Well, I mean, you and I worked hard to establish that Royce a few years back, so I'm proud of that, and that's a good avenue to hear the voices of the youth from our community. Then we've also started another community group that it purposely has different segments of the community advising us on issues, and the youth is one of those voices that are at the table for us. So.
That's great, and we use a process at the city called co-design, where we reach out to particular groups. Youth can be one of them, or other groups in the community who maybe aren't often listened to or asked for their opinion, to make sure that we have all the voices in the community, not just, I call them the STPs, the same 10 people that show up at our meetings, right? We want to hear from you, right? We want to hear from more people, and so co-design is one way, but all of us have described different ways that we are involving youth so that we can get that voice. And I think that's particularly important because, of course, we're all making decisions now that is their future, and we want them to feel like they're part of that. So as we're kind of winding down, are there any thoughts about tri-government, about working together that are particularly you feel important, or the things we should think about moving ahead?
I think sometimes it's hard for us to collaborate because we do have different roles, but it's important that we don't inhibit each other, so we don't get in each other's way. So I think communication has been important to allow us to do our roles efficiently.
Yeah. And we always say, from a school district perspective, we cannot provide all the supports that our students need to be successful. There's so much of the infrastructure that the city and the county provide. And in this time where we're seeing some decreased funding and cuts in services, I think it's going to be even more important that we stay on top of, from the district perspective, what the city and county are able to offer our students and our families and our staff. But we also need to give you all feedback of what our community's needs are. What are their changing barriers? What are the challenges that they're facing, so that when you're making your budgets and you're planning your programming, you're hearing about what our population needs. And I love that we have this foundation of this relationship, that it's not hard to reach out to each other and say, we've got some information for you, or we need some information for you, or let's do some planning. So I think our community should know that we are trying to work together as much as we can.
I agree, and I think the formal connections are important, but the informal partnerships are even more important. And I would extend it even beyond the city, county, and the school district, but the partnerships within the community. Our leaders at Mayo Clinic and the Chamber and
Many nonprofits
throughout the city. One of the benefits of Rochester being the size we are, that we can gather our entire leadership of our community and work on issues that we need to address for the future. So, and the core of it is our tri-government here.
You know, that's a wonderful point. I think we are a big and growing city. We're growing bigger every year, but we're also small enough that we have these personal connections, that we all know each other, that when we go out in the community recognizes us and feels comfortable speaking to us. And so to that end, before we wrap up, I did want to just let folks know that all of us want to hear from the community. We want you to feel comfortable contacting us, emailing us, leaving a voicemail message, sending a text. Council President Schubring will answer the phone. But those are all very important things, and we want and we need to hear from you. So that is one message I think we all want to send, and that despite what people may have thought in the past or may think, we do work together, not only as individuals, but as organizations, trying to do what's best in this time of growth. And there is a lot of growth going on now. So I just want to thank you all for coming. I want to let the community know that how much I respect this group at the table and how lucky they are to have individuals like this representing them, that are open, that are caring, and that just really want to do the best for our community. So thank you all for joining me today at Rochester Voices, and see you next time.